Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It is draft week. That means we're gearing up, and today's guest is outstanding. It's Greg Cosell. You know him. He's been here before. He's a senior producer at NFL Films, has been for about 45 years. Additionally, you'll see him on ESPN's NFL Matchup. He did a draft special earlier this week with old Patriot Darius Butler and Sal Paolantonio. And the reason he does it there and on the 33rd team is there is no one more serious, straight shooting, and informed than Greg Cosell when it comes to breaking down prospects. So we're going to get down and dirty with him on some of the Patriots' perceived inclinations and what they might be getting from different players that I'll name for Greg. But before we get into that, I want to give the Patriots just a tiny bit of advice. Be aggressive. Be aggressive. B-E-A-G-G, you know how the rest of it goes. Listen, there's talk out there that this is a draft that is not even top heavy. There's very few first-round talents. And as a result, a lot of teams are looking to rappel down the draft board. That being the case, if teams are turning up their nose, the Patriots aren't reading off the same script as the other teams anyway. 11 picks overall, 6 in the first 135. They have a chance to work this draft. I mentioned that 33rd team website. They have in their top 50, 9 wideouts, 8 offensive tackles, 8 edge players, 8 corners, and 5 tight ends. That's 38 of the top 50 players at positions of immediate or looming need for the Patriots. The Patriots can eat. Interestingly, their number 1 prospect at the quarterback position is their number 2 prospect overall. It's Will Levis. So, as I tell the Patriots to be aggressive, does that include going off at the quarterback position? No. I mean, the Patriots should adopt that F them picks mentality that is everywhere in the league. Take advantage of the willingness of teams to deal, put those picks together and move up. Not necessarily at 14, but you can't wait there until 46 and 75 to make your second and third picks. Now, back to Mac. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The Patriots, moving on from Mac Jones, would be Bill Belichick basically putting an I effed up shirt on and parading it around the draft room. He was the offensive rookie of the year until Jamar Chase overtook him in 2021. Last year, before the season began, he had shown dramatic improvement. Now he can't play. That would be complete and utter resignation by Bill that he said, I didn't do it right. He can't play now. Well, why can't he play now? Because Bill made it that way. You know, I also said earlier this offseason that Mac Jones gets traded over Robert Kraft's dead body. And to me, Kraft looks fine. Okay? And God willing, it stays that way. It makes no sense for a coach whose seat is fairly warm to defy the owner. And what's Mac's sin, too? Being pissed off that his second season in the league got pissed away? Come on. It's not going to happen. What I mean by aggressive isn't trading Mac Jones. It's spinning those picks forward that I talked about. Let's do some reading here. The Patriots have 11 picks. The Raiders and Texans have 12 each. Packers, Rams, and Niners, along with the Patriots, have 11. 9 teams have 6 picks or fewer. Now, that means you can marry them up. Teams with a lot of picks, teams with not a lot of picks. 3 of those teams in the AFC East. Miami's got 4. Jets and Bills have 5 and 6, respectively. But if the Patriots want to dance, they could dance with the Broncos or the Eagles or the Panthers or the Vikings or the Titans. All those teams are low on picks. And I bet the Patriots are going to ask to dance. I bet Bill Belichick goes into this draft and sees opportunity, which is a little bit of what we're going to get into with Greg Cosell. Before we do that, I'm going to give you 3 things that, while they would surprise the hell out of me, in hindsight, they wouldn't shock me. First, seeing Hendon Hooker on the board in the second round and trading up to go get him. Tennessee quarterback had 58 touchdowns and 5 picks. the last 2 years. He blew his ACL last year in 2022, still was the SEC Player of the Year. Brings to the table some running ability and restart ability that neither Mac nor Bailey Zappi have. Second round pick on a quarterback. That's what we're talking. We'll get into more quarterback prospects with Greg. Next, Bijan Robinson, running back, Texas. Why would they take a running back with a top 10 back like Ramondre Stevenson? Why would they take a running back when the position is devalued? Why would they take a running back when the best players at that position turn into money pits and break down by 29? Stay tuned for Greg Cosell. We'll get into the reasons. Finally, tight end, first round. There are two who are rated up there. It's Dalton Kincaid and Michael Mayer. Patriots, again, you have to bear in mind where the contract situations are. Talked to Matt Groh about that last week at his pre-draft press conference. Gesicki and Hunter Henry are both in their walk years. So why not take advantage of a bumper crop of tight ends and go ahead and bring one in the first round? Yeah, not at 14. You put a kid and caboodle together and you move up into the first round to take one who's still on the board. Meanwhile, I think sitting pretty at 14 and taking a corner is probably the smartest thing in the world to do. But it doesn't matter as much what I think as it does what Greg Cosell thinks. And Greg Cosell's interview is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And here is Greg Cosell, as I mentioned earlier, one of the foremost and best minds on the NFL draft and in pro football in general. My friend, do you think we are in for a chaotic first round?
You mean in terms of things like trades, Tom, or
trades, surprise selections, Bijan Robinsons?
I think there'll be surprises in the minds of many because to me, and I could be wrong because I don't do mocks and I don't make lists the way a lot of people do, but my sense is this will be a draft where one team could have a player ranked 12th on their board and another team could have the same player 45th on their board. You know, I think it's that kind of draft. So I think that there might be some players chosen in the first round that for, people watching, they go, wow, I didn't think that guy was going to go there. But of course, no one knows what teams' boards look like. And unlike people like myself who are trying to, when I watch tape, think about how a player can be best deployed in the league in various schemes, I don't work for one team. So teams are thinking about scheme adaptability. Bill Belichick doesn't care how the Kansas City Chiefs think about a player. He cares about how he sees that player in the context of the Patriots. And, I think sometimes people forget that those are two drastically different things.
And that's been borne out time and time again. Last year being a prime example, Cole Strange is taken 29th overall. And there were guffaws in Los Angeles, not at the Patriots pick, but just that Sean McVay had presumed that he'd go much later because of their system. Given that and what you just said, there's a perception that this draft is low on first round talent. But again, for a team like the Patriots who don't work off the same script, they might have a whole crap ton of guys with first round talent.
That's the thing. Look, I think a lot of people every year figure that there's just a ton of so-called transcendent players that are just high first round talents. As you know, Tom, you've been doing this a long time, as I have. Very rarely are there a lot of quote unquote transcendent players. So it all comes down to just evaluating traits and how those players fit in a particular scheme. Look, you can go back, look at someone like Patrick Mahomes, who basically right now is clearly the best quarterback in the National Football League, has won multiple Super Bowls early in his career. People would say that we haven't seen a quarterback exactly like him. And yet the Chiefs had to trade up to get him at pick 10. I remember the year he came out being at the scouting combine and talking to a ton of people who were so uncertain as to what Patrick Mahomes was going to be in the NFL. You probably remember this. And so, you just never know. And so, of course, Brent Veach and Andy Reid are viewed as geniuses, but that always happens. They probably had other picks that if you look closely, people would say they weren't smart at all. That's the way this works. No matter what kind of testing we do, whether it's now the S2 cognition test or whatever test you want to use, it's still human beings evaluating human beings, and it's just a hard deal.
It's fit, opportunity, and timing, I think, and timing and what the team is, the direction of it. All that in mind for a Patriots team that went 8-9 last year,
Right.
missed the playoffs. And, you know, it's warm to the touch if you put your hand on Bill Belichick's seat. Believe it or not, Greg. That being the case, what would be the smartest, safest, most productive spot for them to draft at 14?
Well, I mean, I just look at the league and I look at their roster, and I think that's where you have to start, because that's what Bill's doing. He's looking at the roster and he's looking at his, you know, the schedule hasn't come out yet, but I mean, and he's looking at, obviously he knows his division, and it's a tough division now. I mean, you've got Miami, you've got the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. We know about Buffalo, who they're struggling to beat and are losing big to, so, and I look at their corners and I look at little guys at corner. And I think to myself, it's really hard in this league to play, particularly man coverage, which we know Bill likes to play. He played a little less of it last year, and that may have been a function of talent and the people that he has out there. But prior to that, he played a ton of man coverage. They used to lead the league in what we call cover one, man-to-man with a single post safety. And last year, they played meaningfully less of it. And I look at the corner position, and where do they pick? 14th, 15th, somewhere
14.
around 14.
So you got
So there are going to be corners available. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say who he likes. I certainly don't know that. You don't know that. I only know based on my tape study the players I like. They may not be the players that Coach Belichick likes, but I just look at the corner position and I feel like they need a little more length at the corner position.
Tallest, longest, most impactful guys. Joey Porter Jr. Is longish.
Deonte Banks from Maryland,
who I think, my friend Phil Perry, who you've met in the past, he really likes Deonte Banks.
And so do I.
I saw that earlier today. You have him as your second-ranked corner.
If I had to make a list, he'd be my second-ranked corner. Now, a lot of people love Devin Witherspoon, and I really like him too. But in terms of playing, see, here's the way I think of it, and it's not that I'm right or wrong, but I think in this league, the way passing games and offenses are going, that you need to line up and play press man. Not on every snap. Nothing's 100%. We all know that. But I think you need to line up and play press man. And I think that Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, who I expect to be gone by the time the Patriots pick, and Deonte Banks, to me, are the two best press man corners. Now, there's another corner who's not likely to be a first-round player, but if you really like him, maybe you say, hey, let's get somebody else at 14 because I think he'll be there in the second round, and that's Tyreek Stevenson from the University of Miami, who's a really physical, competitive, plays with a swagger kind of press man corner, and has really good size,
They'll have not necessarily the pick of the litter, because you could see Gonzalez going off the board and perhaps Witherspoon, but they'll have great options. How about an offensive line? I know Skoronski has been traditionally mocked in the top 10. You don't do mocks necessarily,
but I've seen them. But
if you're looking for a tackle, they're again sitting pretty with 8 guys on the 33rd team website ranked in the top 50.
Yeah, and I don't fancy myself, Tom, as an offensive line guru by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think, and I've had this validated by some I've spoken to, I don't think this is a great tackle class. Tackles do get drafted, and you know this because it's a passing league. So when it's a passing league and you're starting with the quarterback, it's all the ancillary positions that go with the quarterback in the passing league. It's offensive tackles, it's pass rushers, and it's corners. Right, and now it's wide receivers.
Yeah.
So it's all the positions that are most associated with it being a passing league. So tackles do get drafted. That's the way it works. Skoronski's a fascinating guy. In an ideal world, he's an interior player. In an ideal world, that doesn't mean that he can't play tackle, but he's got 32-inch arms. And for a lot of coaches, I remember listening to a podcast a year or so ago with Dante Scarnecchia, who you obviously know, I'm sure. He talked about arm length being very critical for offensive tackles because it's very hard with these speed rushers. And if you have 32-inch arms to really get your hands on them. And therefore, a lot of people see him as being, seeing him like Brandon Sheriff or Zach Martin, being able to step inside right away and being an all-pro guard.
You look too in Isaiah Wynn, who was, a very talented player.
Yeah.
Coming out of Georgia, had the Achilles, had the injuries, but Again, I'm not an offensive line guru either, but at the right tackle position, he was burned more regularly than a decent athlete should be. And I wonder if the arm length and the guessing you have to do because you don't have that extra inch and a half or that angle resulted in some of that. So that's good
Very
to bear in
possible.
mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, Paris Johnson, he's a little bit all over the board for some people. I've spoken to people who think he's a great athlete. I've spoken to people who think he's just an okay athlete. You know, he needs more strength. He got hurt a lot this year at Ohio State. And obviously, Ohio State's one of those schools where I watch a ton of their tape. He got hurt a lot this year with bull rushes, speed to power. He got driven back into the pocket. He's kind of a narrow-based guy. Now, he's got pretty good feet. You know, I don't believe he's an elite athlete because elite to me is one of those words. Like, to me, you can't use that word with him when you think of the Laramie Tunsils and the Trent Williams. Those are elite athletes. Paris Johnson is not in that category of athlete, but he's very narrow-based, and he gets driven back into the pocket by speed to power pass rush. You know, that's something that needs to be worked on.
And that's something that at 14, you're looking at it and saying, man, we got a really good corner here who can make our entire defense better and start to deal with these players. And we have an okay, with reservations, offensive lineman. It would probably make sense to go to the other spot. I want to ask you too about the most intriguing prospect in the draft. Bijan Robinson. Is he Marshall Falkian, or is that a stretch?
Well, I think in terms of how he can be deployed, yes. Is he as good a receiver as Falk? No, because Falk was absolutely special, but Robinson's a really good receiver. And there are times when he was detached from the formation that he did look like a wide receiver running routes. But I'm loath to compare anyone to someone like Marshall Falk because he was absolutely special and is a Hall of Famer. And Falk, as you well know from being in the business a long time, was just incredibly football smart. I don't know Bijan Robinson. I don't know if that's the case at all. It may well be. I don't know. But, you know, Robinson's only flaw is probably that he's a running back, and therefore people don't take running backs high. But he's a really, really good player.
Could an innovative coach who cares still and has always shown cares less about the outside opinions and doesn't mind seeing jaws drop, could he get together with a 51-year-old or whatever it is, offensive coordinator, and say, you know what? I don't care that we are taking a running back. We can use him on third down the way we use James White. We can use him as a slot the way we did Julian. We can use him as a running back to complement Ramondre. Could you see Bijan Robinson? And if Bill Belichick drafted Bijan Robinson, would you say, I know why he did it. I like it.
And by the way, Tom, I think you raise a great point because ultimately on offense, at the skill positions, you're looking for explosive players who can, that's what the game has become in many ways. Offensively create explosives, defensively stop explosives. So if Bijan Robinson can create explosive plays in multiple ways, it becomes incumbent upon the coaching staff to put him in positions to create those explosive plays. He's not just Derrick Henry, where you line him up in the I formation and just hand him the ball. You know, you use him. Look, Bill O'Brien just came from Alabama with Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, he may love Jahmyr Gibbs and say, hey, I love this kid more. Who knows? But the point is, Jahmyr Gibbs is another one of those kinds of backs that you can line up anywhere in your formation, and he can create explosive plays. Robinson can do that. That's really becomes incumbent upon a coaching staff to figure that out.
If Hendon Hooker is still hanging around, there's no friggin' way he will be at 46.
At
46.
Oh, you know, I think you would know better than I, but it seems like you made it clear that Mac Jones is someone that if they could get better at the position, they might want to. So that could well be the case. I like Hendon Hooker's tape. I would bet he'd have a lot to learn with NFL offense, particularly from someone like Bill O'Brien, who's so detailed and nuanced. And from everything I hear about Hooker, he's very smart, but he ran a pure version of the air raid, and that is by NFL standards, very simplistic.
Third round or later, then there's three quarterbacks I zeroed in on that just to probe you on it. Tanner McKee, 6'6", but he's kind of a Mac Jones-esque type player. Anyway.
He's a little gawkish.
Jaron Hall and Dorian Thompson-Robinson would be variations of what the Patriots already have with Zappe and Mac Jones. Those three guys.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a little different because he can move. He, in the minds of many, he would fit more the NFL game as it is today because he does have second reaction movement ability. Now, the UCLA pass game, Bill Belichick will know all about that because it's Chip Kelly's offense. So he's going to know that offense, and he's going to know what Thompson-Robinson was asked to do in college. I liked him more than, to be honest with you, than I expected, just based on minimal TV viewing. Being on the East Coast, I don't see a lot of the late games, because they start too late. I need my milk and cookies and to go to bed time. Yeah, but he has that significant second reaction element to his game, which, as I said, is now a bigger factor in today's NFL. Jaron Hall was someone I was actually fascinated by, and I called a coaching friend of mine who's been in the league forever, and I said, "Hey, what do you think?" And he said, "Yeah, he's a pretty interesting guy." And I kept watching more and more of him, more than I thought I would, because quite frankly, I kind of liked him.
I should interject too, real quick. Jaron Hall's a BYU quarterback, not overly big,
not
overly athletic, but really productive, as they often are there.
And he's got functional athleticism. Let's use that term. But he's shorter than ideally desired, as you said, at 6 feet and 1/8 of an inch. He's got some arm strength limitations. I wouldn't say he can drive the ball the way you ultimately like it. Probably Mac Jones can't either. His game is built, Hall's that is, somewhat similar to Mac on timing and rhythm throws in the short to intermediate areas of the defense. He's got a very quick, compact delivery. There's something about the kid that I liked. And as I said, I felt he could actually develop into a starting quarterback in the right system. And the right system means run game, defined rhythm throws, RPO elements, play action, boot action. I think you can do that with Jaron Hall.
Do you think this is a good draft in which to find a developmental quarterback? You got Mac in 21, you got Zappe in 22. And if you take another one in 23 and you finally say, okay, it didn't work with Mac, who would you think would be a good fit for an O'Brien Belichick type of style?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, obviously O'Brien coached, did he coach Mac Jones?
They overlapped a bit when Mac was doing pre-draft stuff.
Right. But I mean, that's always a hard question because O'Brien's been in the league for quite a while. He's coached a lot of different quarterbacks, obviously coached Deshaun Watson. I mean, to me, Jaron Hall could potentially fit what they might want to do. Tanner McKee, to me, is a tough go because and I was on the field at the combine. He's a little gawky. I don't, he's a pure pocket guy. And I don't know if he's quite a good enough thrower to be solely a pure pocket guy. That's the thing. It's hard to just be a pocket thrower in today's NFL unless you're great. So I think Jaron Hall would be an interesting guy.
Yeah, and that movement skill of Dorian Thompson-Robinson too from UCLA.
Yeah,
would also, if he's hanging around out there until round 4 and you have 6 picks in the first 135. Lastly, it's a bumper crop of tight ends.
Yeah.
You have Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, the individual whose name I'm blanking on from Iowa.
Sam Laporta.
Thank you. All of them have varied skills.
Yeah.
Mayer is like Jason Witten.
Yes.
You mentioned that it was Kelsey-esque, not Kelsey, but a little bit of similarity. You could deploy Dalton Kincaid in a similar way. And Laporta, who would he be like?
Laporta's an interesting guy. I like Sam Laporta. He just had a few too many drops, but again,
he's the best athlete of the 3, correct?
No, Kincaid is a really, really good athlete. Kincaid, you can do a lot of things with. He's not a great blocker, but he gives effort, and you can always teach a guy if he gives effort. Laporta he has the look and feel of a 10-year tight end. I mean, he's a compact route runner. He can work the middle of the field. He's got play speed to be vertical. It depends what flavor you want, Tom. It depends what you're looking for at the tight end position. They still have Hunter Henry, who in his own way is pretty complete, but not great, but solid. Do they want someone like Kincaid, who Kincaid has really good receiving ability? He's a vertical dimension for a tight end. So it really just depends on what flavor tight ends you want. There's a lot of tight ends in this draft. You could probably get a tight end in the 4th round if you like them. It just depends on what you're looking for at the position. Mayer is unspectacular, but very good at everything. But he's not an explosive athlete.
Like he's Hunter Henry, whose contract is up after this year, and he's been an expensive character. I'm going to cut you free because I know how hard you work. I know how hard you've been working all day today and will be for the rest of the week. So I want to thank you, Greg Cosell, for joining us, and as always, bringing so much intelligence and information.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it.
All right, that's a wrap for today. Of course, we will be back with you on Draft Thursday. We have a ton of content. We have a draft special on television. We will have Phil's Next Pats podcast coming out this week, and we will hit you after the first round ends with an emergency 2023 NFL Draft Pod. Have a great rest of the week. Thanks so much.